So we're talking with Rob Callister, and looking back in this section on your last 12 months. It's been a busy time, and we'll come to all the other things with your responsibility change and that sort of thing. But I mean, you did have, well, you had all these TT, the motorsports, that sort of thing, and you obviously Onchan and your constituents. But over to you. I mean, you know, what sort of years have been for you the past year?
I think it's been an incredible year. I think it's been an incredibly difficult year at times, but it's also been an enjoyable year for me personally. For example, bringing back tourism fully. We're expecting hopefully around 275,000 visitors to our island this year, which is fantastic news. We brought back the TT and we also brought back the Manx Grand Prix. But on the flip side of that, we've had no time to breathe as political members, and I think as a society, as an island, because we've suddenly, at the election just a year ago, we were talking about education, we were talking about health, we were talking about housing, we were talking about jobs, the economy. But suddenly, as soon as the election was over, we went straight into the effects of COVID, trying to come out of that. We still had the hangover from Brexit. And then on the back of that, we're now facing this colossal issue around the cost of living crisis. And as the chairman of Manx Utilities, in the last 9 months, I don't think I've ever worked so hard, but with such a dedicated team to minimise the impact on businesses and domestic customers, but also trying to keep the financial situation alive and basically balancing the books.
Would it be fair to say you were frazzled in that job? You were having issues, maybe you weren't getting what you wanted, maybe? I'm just trying to pick the right sort of terminology. The MU I'm talking about here.
No, I think I was the chair of Manx Utilities. It has a fantastic non-executive board, which I fully respect. They are professionals. They come in to give their professional advice. Yeah. We have an executive team that work really well, and they work long hours, and they definitely have done that in my tenure as chairman. But at the end of the day, there is that third element, which is what I always highlight, is the political element. And as chairman, my job is to make sure I'm representing my constituents, make sure I'm representing businesses, making sure trying to minimise the impact on customers, but also fully acknowledging, which I did on every meeting, acknowledging the financial situation that was facing Manx Utilities.
Well, it was an amazing situation to see something. I mean, we're talking about the gas, which wasn't even your thing, but obviously everything that was being produced electricity-wise was just going up and up and up, wasn't it?
Yeah, so as I've said in my speech just yesterday in Tynwald, we buy between 30 and 40 million therms of natural gas. A price per therm was 50 pence, and that had been steady pretty much for over 10 years. Suddenly, in March 2021, that price started to rise. It went over £1 in March, and during my tenure as chairman, we saw the price increase beyond £1, beyond £2, £3, and up towards over £7 a unit per therm, for clarification. And that you can do the calculations yourself, how much that has cost the authority. At the same time, all the utility providers were increasing their cost. The general cost of living was increasing, and we had to manage this because at the end of the day, when people turn off their gas to look for an alternative supply, it's normally electricity.
Let's give it to you though. I want to put this. Yeah. It's about you and how you found the job. And
I found it hard. I mean, I found it hard. I've never felt so much pressure as I have in the last 9 months. And as I take up this new role, I guess that pressure will continue. But at the same time, it has been one of the most rewarding periods in my political career over the last 9 months. Actually listening to the effects of what's happening to the business, listening to what's happening within the public sector, from a constituent, from a business point of view, and then trying to manage a solution which is fair to everybody and get that balance right.
I appreciate things have changed and we'll deal with what you're doing now, but when you first came back, you're under the Cannan administration, you didn't get a seat at the top table. How frustrating was that, not to be in Comin?
None at all. I mean, chief ministers make their own decisions, they have their own direction. I was very pleased within a few hours of being, not successful, of being in the Council of Ministers.
But you wanted to be there, right?
No, Paul, you actually do the jobs to the very best of your ability. I was elected to represent my constituents, to represent the island. Yes, there's probably an element of me after doing 5 years that, I wasn't considered that time, but you have to dust off and get on with the job. But I was very grateful to Dr. Allinson, who asked me straight away to come back in and to do motorsport, to do the tourism, and to actually look at the parts that I knew very well. And I've continued to do that work and to develop those products for the island, for the benefit of the island. So now, as I step down from the role after 6 years and take up my new role as Health Minister, I'm having to start from scratch again.
Okay, let's talk about the TT and that sort of stuff. I mean, because I know I haven't really talked about it at all, and obviously the tragedy that happened at this particular year's events. Is there things that you would have done differently, or you've learned lessons from this?
Well, I've got to be careful because there is still inquiries going on.
But you can talk generally.
No, I think overall we were prepared to bring back the TT, and again I want to put on record my sincere thanks to the DFE Motorsport. I think they did a brilliant job to have a root and branch full review of the TT in the absence, which gave us time to do that. I thought we brought it back. If you look at some of the photographs around the fan park, I thought that was amazing to see. I thought the product was good. Yes, there was some unbelievably bad tragedies in that, and I acknowledge that fact. There will be reviews in respect of the incidents, the location of them. That's going to continue. We'll always be looking at safety, but I think it's worth mentioning that prior to this year's event, we have done a massive big review of the safety, making sure marshals are better trained, making sure we've got better medical facilities for our riders if they happen to be injured. So the event itself continues to evolve, and again, I just thank the team for what they've done.
How in charge are you in this thing? I mean, you're the figurehead as such, are you? But you've got this committee that really is doing all the work, is it? I mean,
it's the DFE Motorsport team. You as the political member get an overview of it. If there is items that you are concerned with, you raise those concerns. They can be elevated then to the DFE board, which is then has all the political members, the minister and the executive team, which will discuss them. And sometimes those are even elevated to the Council of Ministers. So we're very much in the process.
Okay. Well, with time remaining, what about your constituency side of things? Because you're obviously...
constituency work never changes, but I have to be honest, I think I've been so busy this first 9 months to a year of this job, I've probably spent less time working with constituents as I did in the previous administration. But that's because the electricity issue, the cost of living crisis, and now, as you say, we've got all of the other problems coming through.
So you have your surgeries.
I still hold a monthly surgery. So
you're not writing a blog this time, right?
I'm not writing a blog, but what's actually happening is if constituents are contacting me, I'm addressing those. But I feel personally I'm not engaged within Onchan as I was previously, and for that I apologise. But I think it's just I've had to focus so much on the cost of living crisis within Manx Utilities and to work with the teams there, and everything else that's been going on this year. So I feel that's slightly slipped, but that doesn't mean I'm not representing my constituents.
But now you're a minister, which again, say we'll do a separate thing about that. But this will make it worse, won't it? I mean,
I think in the last week I'm surprised how hard my workload is. I think this week, just this 1 week, I've started 6 a.m. most days, and I've been finishing about 10:30, 11 at night. But that's not going to continue. That's just me getting into this role, trying to get an understanding of the role, meeting the team, which I've only just gone in today. Is the first day I've really gone into the department to meet the team. So I've been at the government conference this week. So it's just been very busy.
What have you done in the last year then? Just to round up, to your people in Onchan and whatever. What have you achieved?
Well, it's hard to achieve. I think it's. I would say that I've worked tirelessly to make sure to get the balance right with the energy costs. I think working with the executive teams, working with the board, to make sure that the concerns of people who are struggling to pay their electricity bills, their utility bills at the moment, are being heard loud and clear. I think from a tourist point of view, we've brought tourism back. From motorsport, we've brought it back, which just helps businesses, and they include the businesses that are in Onchan. I've listened to my constituents when my constituents needed me. I've always been there. Regardless of what else goes on around me, they've never had to wait weeks for me to get back to them. I've always been there for my constituents, and that will continue.
Are you enjoying it?
Am I enjoying it? Yes, I am. I think it's a fantastic role. I've said that in previous interviews. Being a member of the House of Keys is fantastic, but I don't think people outside realise the pressures that elected members can be under at times.
Well, you said yourself, pressure when you were the MU. I mean, you got to the point, did you of almost saying enough's enough, or were you happy to continue?
No, I felt it a couple of times because the pressure was so much, because I obviously am trying to balance everything. But I have a fantastic non-executive board which was there to support me, to give their professional advice. I have a fantastic team, But I also had very good support from the Chief Minister and from the Council of Ministers. So I was able to elevate things. I was able to speak to other people. I was able to speak to previous chairs of Manx Utilities to get their thoughts, their insight. So there's always help there. And I think as political members, regardless of what position you hold within government, as elected members, we should never be afraid to ask other people for help.
Okay, well, in part 2, we'll look at the year ahead with our guests here today, Rob Callister for Onchan.